Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jamie.
I'm Justina.
And this is
Just So You Know.
Yay!
I love this room. This makes me happy.
Got a little poster behind us, and we have a very exciting episode for you guys today. We have a guest coming in the studio with us.
Yes.
We are going to be talking to you all about what open admission shelters are versus the term quote unquote no kill. Is it really no kill? What does that really mean? We're going to break it down in this episode.
I think this is a really important topic because for me, I am all over the place. I'm like a whirlwind of emotions when it comes to where I stand, which is probably where most people can relate to, but it's mainly because we don't have as much education on what these terms really mean and what happens behind closed doors. Just so you know.
Just so you freaking know.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, being somebody that has been an animal rights activist for the past 7 years, I think the tipping point of actually getting involved in animal rights activism started with dogs and cats for me.
For sure.
Started with fostering, started with volunteering. And I remember my first foster came from a open admission shelter. And my perception of open admission shelters back then were very different than what they are now.
Right.
And I will explain why in this episode. And our guest, our amazing guest, Lisa Lange, she is going to come on the podcast. And she is the Senior Vice President of Communications at PETA. So she's the real deal. She's been at PETA for over 30 years.
Holy moly, girl.
So we're really lucky and excited to have her on. And what she's going to talk about is the over crisis that we are dealing with when we look at the dogs and cats that are entering shelters. It's in the millions, and shelters, it's a really, really tough situation what they're dealing with now. And we're going to talk about solutions, possible solutions, and what we can do also to help. Right. So before we invite her on, I just want to give a brief summary and breakdown. What is an open admission shelter? And also, what is a quote unquote no kill shelter?
Right.
Okay.
Well, it sounds pretty self-explanatory. Open admission shelters, they accept any animal, right? That someone is trying to surrender or they found, whatnot. And then no kill shelter is the same thing, right? Like I would assume like they just don't kill. They don't euthanize the pets that are there.
You don't listen, buddy.
I am trying to talk as an audience member, damn it. Trying to be relatable. I know what I know.
All right, well,
Call me out. I'm trying to act.
We spent a whole
great
hour prepping for this, and she's acting like she doesn't know what it is. Well,
they don't know what it is.
Let me
I'm
explain.
acting here, buddy.
Okay, so a no-kill shelter is actually a slow-kill shelter.
Exactly.
Okay, so you do know that. So
I do know.
No-kill shelters are very picky about who they take in.
Right.
So if there is a family that finds a dog that might have gotten hit by a car, and they bring this dog to a no-kill shelter.
Right.
The shelter might say, we can't take that dog in because the cost of having to deal with the injuries from the car, it's too high, so we don't want to take them. So then what does the family do with the dog? Well, maybe they can't handle the dog themselves, so sometimes they'll release the dog on the street or who knows.
Who knows?
Also, the other problem with no-kill shelters is that they have an incentive to keep their euthanasia rates low. So no-kill doesn't mean that they don't euthanize. They do euthanize. Their numbers are just lower because they're not taking in sick dogs, old dogs, injured dogs, and they have an incentive to keep their youth rates low.
Right. They just want to look like the good guys, and in reality, they're just misleading the public, and injured dogs need help. They need help. Injured animals need help. So I don't like the concept of, a place turning away an animal in need just for the sake of their statistics. Because then, where's your heart at? Do you genuinely care about these animals, or do you just want to look like you're a savior?
Is it an act of performance?
Performance. Well, maybe they're kind of like what Jamie does. Like, they try to act like you're a ding dong, and you're just trying to act, and then get called out.
Huh? Wait, I missed that. What?
Huh?
What?
Anyway.
Anywho, we're going to just keep moving
I used to
here.
wish I could open up a shelter because I know how big of an issue it is. You know, I used to volunteer at a shelter in college, and I would be like, how many employees do you have? Are all these dogs getting walked? And this dog looks sick. And like this dog is stepping in his poop. Like it's an overwhelming process. So it's like, it's hard to judge any type of shelter that's trying to do the right thing. But at one point it's kind of like, this is like a prison. This is like more torture for these animals. And like, it's so loud. Some of these dogs are so stressed.
Sitting in cages for years.
Don't get walked.
Right.
Don't get socialized. Don't get love and compassion. It's like they're not really being set up for success to enter in a new home.
I think as animal rights activists, we really have to look at these cases at an individual as individuals.
Right.
And instead of just saying, you know, oh, here's what we'll do for all of them, we really have to look at what is best for that animal.
Facts.
If that animal is suffering, I do think it's best to euthanize them. If they are sick, if they are old, if they are injured, if they are broken and cannot be saved, I mean, it is a case-by-case basis.
It has to be case by case. Because for me, I get a little squeamish whenever I feel like it's just a space issue. And like we've learned that we don't know. It's a shelter by shelter issue. You know, we don't know what people are doing behind closed doors. It's really almost impossible to know every single shelter's process. But yeah, if an animal's suffering and it's like obviously they're in pain, I don't want them to live out basically on meds and, you know, suffering slowly until they die.
And then part of the problem is that the general public demonizes those that work in open admission shelters, and they demonize the people that euthanize some of these animals, when really I think that they are just cleaning up the mess that was started by breeders in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, the breeders are the problem to begin with. That's for sure. I mean, I have been one of those people who have judged whenever someone has made the decision to euthanize an animal, because sometimes I'm like, whoa. I feel like sometimes they've jumped the gun, but at the end of the day, I don't know all of these diseases. I don't know. No one knows what these animals are genuinely going through when they have these chronic diseases or injuries, you know?
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to like communicate in detail what's going on with them, even if they seem like they're not suffering. So I have been that person that judges whenever they are like, we had to put this dog down or we've euthanized this cat. And I'm like, you just raised $4,000 and now you decided to euthanize this cat? What the is going on?
Listen, let's have Lisa Lange join us, Senior Vice President of Communications at PETA. She knows what's up, and she's going to really break down this issue for us and explain what's going on and how we can help. Hello!
Hi.
Welcome!
It's so good to be here in person with you guys.
I know. We don't usually have that very often,
Yeah.
so it makes a difference.
And it's an
Yeah.
honor that it's you, the
yes.
icon, the legend,
goodness.
the Lisa Lange. Lovely Lisa over here, everybody.
Lovely Lisa.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here.
Well, you have done so much great work over the years. For those people that aren't too familiar, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us what you do at PETA?
Yeah, okay. I'm Lisa Lange, and I'm our Senior Vice President of Communications. And I've been with PETA for more than 30 years, and so I get to do a lot of stuff in my position, which I'm very fortunate. But essentially, to break it down, I oversee our celebrity outreach division, our animals in film and television division.
Wow.
And that's dedicated to getting actual animals out of productions and positive messaging into it. I also helped start PETA Latino
Okay, cool.
11 years ago. So I oversee a part of PETA Latino and then work on various projects, including our coyote issues. I'm kind of the go-to coyote person, and it's just because I have a love for them. And I grew up in Southern California, so I've known them all my life. And then I do work locally on the animal sheltering issues, which is a crisis. so that, and then just the various projects that come along, which I'm grateful to do.
Well, you brought it up. Why don't you just tell us what's going on in LA with the animal shelters there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really discouraging. It's one of the biggest sheltering systems in the country
That's crazy. LA just is having a crisis with homelessness, period.
across the board.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad. And it predates the current Mayor Karen Bass, and the head of LA Animal Services. It goes back, I mean, really, the no-kill movement, which I kind of blame for all of this, goes back to, the 90s, really. And I think it is to blame for why we're in the situation we are in now, which we'll get into. But essentially, where we are in Los Angeles is that the shelters are so overcrowded. And I blame that on the fact that when they passed a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance in 2008, which was wonderful. You have to, by law, get your animal fixed.
Yeah.
They ignored it. They didn't do anything to enforce it. They didn't do anything to go out and say to the public, let's do this, it's the law now. And this is back in 2008, when we did have the means, when there hadn't been a pandemic. And so they, as one person who works in City Hall said, yeah, we passed it and then we ignored it. Okay, so then
what was the point?
There's no point, there's no point in doing that except to say, look what we did, and then they go on to the next thing, right?
Exactly.
So then the kind of fast forwarding, the no-kill movement really took hold. And essentially there's a major group in the United States who is advocating that cities go no-kill. But the problem with it is you can't just go no-kill. You can't be no-kill until you're no birth. You have to put the work in on prevention first. But when someone comes along and says, hey, Mayor Garcetti, because it was Eric Garcetti before the current mayor, we, with you, will make Los Angeles the first big major no-kill city. Is he going to say no to that? It's a gorgeous headline.
Of course,
Right.
it sounds nice.
Right.
It's a surface level thing
That's right.
that keeps a lot of secrets.
Yeah, thou shall not kill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're all for it. We're
Right.
all wanting to eliminate the need for euthanasia. The difference
Right.
with PETA is we wanted to eliminate the need for it.
yeah.
You can't shortcut that.
Right.
So then I'm skipping all kinds of points, but
No,
then
you're explaining it very clearly, actually.
Okay. So overpopulation continues because they're not preventing births, and they're
Right.
trying to skip to this crazy 90% save rate. And what that means is the shelters are getting overcrowded very, very quickly.
Right.
And what gets lost in the whole discussion, which is a huge issue we have, aside from the prevention, is quality of life.
Right.
And so you have all these animals in the shelters who many times don't get walked for 3 weeks. These dogs, like, big pit bulls, and anyone who knows these animals know how much exercise they need, down to the little chihuahuas who get very
Anxious with all the
anxious.
barking and
Oh, it's so
screaming. They're like
loud. Yes.
shaking and
Yes.
like traumatizing.
Yeah, I go to a crowded bar and I'm like,
Out.
get me out of here.
I'm like, okay, you know what? There's a lot of people in here. It's time for me to go.
hate
And you
this.
know what you're doing. You know
Right.
where you are. You chose to be there. And you
Right.
can walk out anytime
Yeah.
you want. And if more people thought like you, we would be ahead of the game. It's a matter of putting yourself in their position.
Right.
And so, the mayor and everyone was like, okay, great. And they declared Los Angeles no-kill. And the whole time we're saying to them, well, what does that mean to you?
Right.
Because if you're simply not bringing them in and you're leaving them onto the street to fend for themselves, they're dying. They're dying badly. They're just dying out of sight.
Because you're saying
Right.
some of the no-kill shelters don't have enough room to
Right.
then
Oh,
take
yeah.
in more.
There's
yeah.
it's impossible to have enough room. You can't say
No,
no
yeah.
kill shelter. We're a no kill state or city,
No.
and then not invest in more shelters at the very least.
Well, I mean, I would argue that building more cages is not the answer. What you
Right.
have to do is you have to bring the numbers down,
Right.
And so now, and then we get hit with a pandemic, right? But the idea behind prevention is so that you can get hit with a recession, you can get hit with a pandemic, but you've brought the numbers down to a good enough size through prevention
Right.
that you can handle something like a pandemic.
Right. Well, the pandemic was really tricky because everyone was like feeling like their hearts and emotions, and they went into the shelter to have some companions, and that shit went out the window when real life came back into play. And then the shelters, they were so excited, and then all of a sudden got overwhelmed with all those animals being returned.
Well, and we did a PSA during the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, warning about this.
Right.
Do not adopt. Do not adopt until you're ready to take them on for life.
Right.
Because that's not like a lamp.
Right.
You get sick of it and then you return it. These are animals who feel so betrayed. They get to love a family, and they say a dog can really only go through that a few times, and then they just shut down.
Oh,
Our
no.
dog is one that we believe was probably either terribly neglected or turned in several times or whatever, because when we got her, she was just a shell of an animal. She didn't know how to walk on a leash. She didn't trust us. She didn't know how to get on the couch, all of that. It's taken a lot of work to get her to the point where she feels safe and loved. And so if we could all just recognize that quality of life is everything, you know? So now the shelters in Los Angeles are turning animals away. People are reporting that they have found boxes of cats left on the street. They go to the LA City shelter, which by the way is taxpayer funded, and say, I found these cats. Will you please keep them so that they're safe? And they're told to turn around and put the box where they found it.
Wow.
That's beyond belief.
Yeah.
That's beyond belief, and that's a total dereliction of duty.
That's kind of abuse. It's like, wait, you're supposed to be a facility that's supposed to help, rehabilitate, shelter, feed, nurse these animals, and you're telling people to throw them back on the street?
What kind of cruelty do we see on the street? What do these animals go through when they are turned away and then released to fend on their own?
Well, for cats specifically, and also dogs, getting hit by a car is one of the one of the top ways that they die. Outdoor cats, I think it's 60% of animals who die on the street, cats who die on the street, it's usually from blunt force trauma caused by getting hit by a car. That's going to be the end for a cat.
Yeah.
You know, your average cat, when you keep them like we do, can live 13, 15 years on average, but an outdoor cat lives a lot, many fewer years.
Yeah.
But worse than that, it's not even, well, how long did he live? It's how did he live?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they suffer, most of them are not having vaccinations, so they get these upper respiratory diseases.
Right. They get into fights, they get wounds, and then they get so infected.
Poisoned.
They get killed by psychopaths on the street.
So it's not no kill, it's slow kill. It's
right.
when will they die and how will they die. So it's prolonged suffering. And so then when you look at something like an open admission shelter, which then is like, we will take these animals in and provide them a safe place. We will make sure they get fed, and we will do our very best to adopt them out.
Yes.
Nobody wants to euthanize an animal, right? They're going to do their very best to adopt them out. But also, I think a lot of people get confused when they look at some of the euthanasia rates. They don't realize that a percentage of the euthanasia rates are sometimes dogs that are dying of cancer, or sometimes dogs that are broken, have behavioral issues, that have bitten children and people in the face, and unfortunately, they have to be euthanized.
Right, because people would logically, from being in an uneducated perspective, which most people are, they're like, well, I guess I would rather bring them back where they were than bring them to a quote unquote kill shelter, because they're gonna die anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Open admission shelters are doing the hardest work, and they're rewarded with the label of being a high kill shelter.
Yeah.
And I'm always telling people, please don't say that. Please don't say that. Walk a day in their shoes and know what it's like to go to work every day and know that you're going to have to decide who lives and who dies, because people continue to breed dogs and buy from breeders, and because people don't spay and neuter, and because cities aren't doing their part requiring spay and neuter and making it easy for people. You need to make it easy for people. So these people show up every day, and I have friends who work in open admission shelters, and it is heartbreaking work. And then to have the public come after them because of euthanasia that they didn't cause. Right. You know, they're doing the hardest work.
It's a bigger issue.
Yeah, it
is. My question, because I have a hard time, I mean, I'm sure as everyone does, when it comes to the choice or just the executive decision of euthanizing. Yeah. I know it's probably case by case, shelter by shelter, but is there any type of process into choosing which animals are next in line to be euthanized? Yeah,
it's case by case, because like we mentioned earlier, quality of life is an issue. The longer an animal stays in a shelter, the less adoptable they become in many cases. And it's not across the board. It's not 100%. And this, by the way, is why fostering is so important, because people who foster are just miracle workers. And Seriously. I'll tell you, the rescue community and the fostering community in Los Angeles has been incredible. And we've partnered with them because they are so angry with the shelters. These shelters, by the way, the Los Angeles Animal Control, they're releasing unaltered animals. So they're putting
into the street?
Oh yeah, they're putting breeding cats and dogs back out on the street. They're not even checking to see if the animals have been fixed. So when you bring that box of cats, or if you find a dog running at large on the street who is fully intact, they're being told to put them back out, even though they're
Without the
breeding animals.
It's like at the very least spay and neuter them.
Right.
At the very
and
least.
make sure that they're not like really, really sick,
Yeah,
or they
yeah,
can get other animals sick being back out in the wild.
I will say that their exception to bringing animals in is if the animal's been hit by a car or is very wounded or is obviously sick, they will take them in. We did just pass a breeding ordinance in Los Angeles. It was a
What does
lot
that
of
mean
pressure.
for everyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, so in this case, this breeding ordinance is when the shelters hit 75% capacity or higher, they will no longer issue breeding permits. In Los Angeles, you have to, if you want to breed an animal, you have to get a permit to do it, and it costs more than a license if your animal's spayed or neutered. And so in this case, they just stopped issuing. They will stop issuing breeding. Yeah.
Screw that. That
Right,
just needs to
exactly.
be done.
That is so weird
Yeah.
to me
Yeah.
that people like want to watch
know.
dogs and
isn't
cats
it-
having
It's-
sex.
I'm
all
a
has
pimp?
to do with money. Yeah, literally.
What is this?
That was amazing the way you just said that.
Hi, I'm a pimp.
But doesn't it blow your mind?
It does.
You make your money by having animals have sex and then you sell their babies. Is
Weird.
there much that's sicker than that?
Very weird.
Twisted.
Kink.
If you really think about
Yeah,
it.
if they were humans, we would be like, whoa, arrest that person.
This no-kill group that I was referencing earlier, I remember I met with them years ago to just try to see if we could find some common ground, even just in promoting spaying and neutering, and we couldn't, sadly. But they're opposed to mandatory spay neuter, which blows my mind. But anyway, they said, you're so risk averse. And I was like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. That's fine. If you want to call me that, or if you want to call this PETA is so risk averse. Yes, we are. Just like a parent is going to look at a busy street and go, yeah, no, I don't think I want my kid playing in the street.
Right.
Because they'd risk getting hit by a car.
Right.
And who has to deal with it?
Yeah.
You guys are dealing with
Yeah.
it.
Right.
When you look at save rates and you look at youth rates,
Yeah.
euthanasia rates, how does this hurt the animals in the end when you look at these rates?
Yeah. I mean, it hurts them because people don't understand the whole no-kill argument.
Yeah,
you know?
they don't.
And it doesn't, and everything that goes into the save rate, the 90% save rate, is just such garbage because it doesn't talk about all the animals that were put out on the street. And it doesn't talk about how seldomly the animals who are in shelters are getting walked. And I'm talking, that's dogs. I mean, what about the cats?
I know.
You know, I mean, it's such a bad situation for all of them, but the answer is so easy and accessible. You know, it's just that city shelters are often overseen by mayors who just want it to go away. It's like, I don't want to talk about
put a
it.
sticker on it, a
Yeah.
smiley sticker on it.
Exactly.
It's like, there's nothing smiley about this.
No, they don't want to delve into what it's really going to take. And we said to Garcetti and we said to Bass after that in Los Angeles, it's going to be a bitter pill to swallow initially. Right. It's going to hurt. Euthanasia rates will go up because you have to open your doors. Our big push for this is should be a shelter. It's a refuge for animals. If they need a place to go, you must open your doors to them.
Right.
It is a cruel world out there, and no one knows that better than PETA and our caseworkers who see exactly what these animals go through every single day.
What's going on in the fields?
Yeah, I mean, our caseworkers work in about 250 communities in Southern Virginia and Northern North Carolina, and that's just a little area. But then we've got our national caseworkers who are responding to cruelty cases everywhere. And so what they see is, you see cats being poisoned, like we said. You see animals being set on fire.
Horrible.
You see animals being beaten with baseball bats.
And I hate those stories.
Yeah, it's devastating, and it is what people do. And and you can't just close your eyes and go, la, 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 I don't want to hear it, I don't want to know about it.
Which is what most of people do.
Understandably, it's hard. I mean, you know, the whole no-kill movement, and the first people to kind of talk about it, I think their hearts were in the right place. I mean, the bottom line is there was a time when
it was manageable?
Yes. And there, you know, you had your dog pound, which meant that if you got a dog off the street, there wasn't a 5-day waiting period to try to reunite with their person. They were shot or gassed.
Horrible.
They were treated like trash. And oftentimes they were overseen by the trash department in a city.
Wow.
So people came along and said, whoa, hang on. They're more than that. You know, they're companions, they're our family.
Right.
So that was the right
direction.
Response, right? I mean, that is taking a good thing and saying they're worth something.
Yeah.
but it was then they just like skipped all the steps, and just decided to go for no kill instead of doing the prevention.
There's a lack of education here too, because you have these people that are living in some of these communities that don't have money, that don't have access to vet care, that are told that, oh, some of these dogs are made to be outside and these dogs are meant to be inside, and they don't know how much responsibility it takes to have an animal and to care for them and to feed them and to realize that they are children. Animals are people too. And so I think that PETA is doing a great job also at educating people when they go and they're like, okay, they need food and water daily. You know, let's start there.
Right.
They should be kept inside. Clean water. Right. I mean,
socialization.
Yes.
I mean, socialization's key.
What is the immediate solution that we can tackle when we look at, okay, we can't get people to stop breeding dogs right away today at this very moment. It's going to take years of legislation to do that. So what is the immediate solution? And then long term, what would you like to see?
I mean, the immediate solution for each individual is never buy a dog or a cat. Decide today you will never, ever, ever buy. Always spay and neuter. Easy peasy things to do. Go to your shelter and always adopt, right? That's the number one thing to do. Also put pressure on your city to give the funds to the local animal sheltering system that allows them, and that also mandates that they take in all comers, because that's what shelters are for. Anything less than that is a dereliction of duty and a complete betrayal for these animals.
It's fraud.
So never ever buy from a breeder. There's no such thing as a responsible breeder. That's what everybody can do today.
What about shelters? Should they make bigger spaces like these open admission shelters?
No. Overall, creating more is only going to, they're all going to fill up very quickly. So I think what shelters need to do is they need to impress upon the people who make decisions and who fund them and say, we need to be open admission and you need to fund us and you need to help us get these volunteer programs underway. You know, in Los Angeles, one of the issues with volunteers is they're the ones blowing the whistle on the quality of care in the shelters. And so they're not encouraging volunteers because they don't want the whistle blown.
But that's tricky because I would do that too.
I mean, I do think that for a volunteer program, it has to be very well organized. You do have to, because you know, you're also putting these animals in the care of someone, which putting an animal in your care is one thing, taking someone else. They have to be careful.
For sure, I get that.
And then they also, they have to know who's coming and going, and they also have a responsibility because there are aggressive animals, and you know, there have been people who've been attacked in Los Angeles specifically. So they have all of these things they have to worry about. But this is where city government needs to step in and give them a leg up. And also, you know, from the top down, from the mayor down, stop using the no-kill moniker as if it is the be all
answer.
End all. Exactly, because what you're doing too is you're diminishing the job that people are doing every day. You're denigrating people who have to make these tough decisions to no fault of their own. And we all have to change our language and recognize that regardless of what's going on in these shelters, these are jobs most of us don't want and most of us can't do.
It's really difficult. It's taxing.
Yeah, it is. It's a heartbreak. It's an absolute heartbreak.
Sometimes I read some of these stories and I'm like, I look at what these shelters are doing when it comes to like the no-kill shelters trying to just adopt out the animals because they don't want to have the euthanasia rate. And there were stories where they would give them trazodone and adopt out the animals, and people think, oh,
they're
this
totally
dog is
chill.
chill. And then next thing you know, the dog is off the medicine and he's like a maniac.
Insane.
Well, you know, and several years ago now, it was pre-pandemic, I actually went to one of the no-kill shelters in Los Angeles. It was like the model no-kill shelter as brought to you by this organization. And I went in to see, and I was like, this is gorgeous. And this is how every animal should live. Every animal, it wasn't even a cage, it was a room. There was a description of what every animal was like. And I said, well, this is gorgeous. This is what we should be striving for. But you can't do it when the numbers are so high. You know, and this other Whatcom Humane Society that I was mentioning, if you go on their website, you see they've taken the time to meet and know every animal, and they describe for you, and they're transparent. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, transparency.
Some of these animals, some of the dogs, they're not good with kids, or they're not good with cats, or they're not good with other dogs, and they know that. They get to know them, and they say, if you are someone who's sedentary, this dog's not for you. They don't want adopting animals out, so it's a revolving door. We call it drive-by adoptions. The no-kill people will practically just toss a cat onto your front yard just to be able to say that they didn't euthanize anyone.
I know.
You know, so for me, it always comes back down to quality of life. Because if I see an animal and I think you're either going to spend the rest of your days or 5 years in a cage, or we make the decision to euthanize you, and it comes down, can you imagine? PETA is an organization that doesn't want you to put a slice of cheese on your sandwich.
Right.
So if we're saying that in some cases there is a fate worse than death, and euthanasia is the best thing for them, you can be damn sure that is going to be the right choice.
Well, I would just like to say anybody that eats animals, first of all, should not be making the call what we should be doing with animals.
Right.
You act like you care about animals, but then you're eating like a freaking chicken sandwich for lunch. Like,
it's
do
like,
not
hold
up,
shut up. Your
motherfucker.
chicken breath is making me want to vomit.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
I mean, you're the last person I would take advice from as to what to do with an animal. So you're worried about like euthanasia rates, yet you cause thousands of animals to die every single year. Get out of here.
People are such hypocrites. My friend, I was on the phone with my friend today. She will hate me if she saw this episode.
What's her name?
I'm not gonna say her name, but she's gonna know if she watches this episode, which she won't. But
I'm sending it to her.
I was just kind of like, she was talking about this animal abuse, and I'm like, you give your dog freaking eggs, woman. Like, you were prioritizing his needs over the other animal needs. And I'm like, they're both horrible.
Male baby chicks are ground up in the egg industry, for everybody that's wondering why we don't want to eat eggs. And also chickens, hens are kept in cages and then they are slaughtered after a horrible long life of suffering.
And they want to live. So it's like, don't be a major hypocrite. You're right. This is abuse. This shouldn't be happening. But also, stop eating cheese and feeding your dog quail eggs. You stupid bitch.
Dogs can be vegan. So
dogs can be vegan.
Very healthy and vegan, and studies actually show that they live longer. So we should do a whole episode on that.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we've covered so much.
Right. And there's still so much
to cover. I just want to open the floor up if you wanted to add any final words, thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, I think, when it always comes down to it, it's a matter of empathy.
Right.
It's a matter of empathy with what you eat, what you wear, and with the companion animal issues, and having empathy for the people doing the hardest work.
Right.
So before you start pointing the finger at shelters and animal control officers, stop for a minute and think about what their day is going to be like, because it's hell. It is hell to see, because most people go into this work because of a love for animals and companion animals specifically. And so for them to have to go and then their name called, so empathy there, empathy for animals, for the animals themselves. It isn't okay to turn them away and just go, okay, well, I didn't see what happened.
Right.
Think ahead and think, this is what could befall this animal, and I'm not going to be responsible for that. So I think that's how I would say is just, we have a new campaign called Every Animal is Someone. And every animal is someone. So when you look at that, that coyote running down the street, have sympathy. When you see a cat, who looks homeless, do everything you can and call people out on their cruelty. If you do see someone, you mentioned earlier, someone's being angry and picking a dog up by their throat. Right. Stop and talk to them. Be careful.
Right. Yeah, be careful, because they're crazy.
But, people are crazier than ever. But always stop and say something.
Yeah.
My background in life essentially is I was brought up by these two parents who were not placard carrying activists, but they knew, and it's very interesting because my father comes from an incredibly racist family in Louisiana. He's a Cajun from Abbeville, Louisiana, and he left when he was 15. And my mom, is who she is, and they brought my brother and me up saying, be kind. Whatever you do, be kind. And when people in their neighborhood were circulating a petition to get the one black family who had just moved in to move out, as if you can do that with a petition. But anyway, they tried to intimidate them. My father kicked them off our property, went across the street, befriended, and they were friends for life. I wasn't even born yet. This family told me the story of my father having done that. This is all to say that both of our parents taught my brother and me, it doesn't matter if you are black, gay, older, or you're an ant on the street just trying to eke a little, just trying to survive. Yeah. Stop and consider them as who they are, because every animal is someone, meaning humans and other animals. And so from that, I just became a loudmouth animal rights activist, a placard carrying. I went a little bit further than they did, but that's the lesson we should be teaching our friends and our kids and our parents and our uncles and aunts and cousins and everything else.
I agree. I was raised the same way. Like, I didn't really I didn't understand people judging other ethnicities or sexualities or animals growing up, you know, and my parents were not vegan, but
mine weren't either.
They encouraged the kindness. Even if I was like, please let me hold these dogs for like a day, we'll post signs. And my mom was like, oh my freaking God, this
You're
child.
like, you created me.
Yeah, and I was like, look how cute they are. We can't let them run in the street. You know, like, it really helped me find my purpose and like just like trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
It's impossible to be perfect, but it is possible to always be kind and compassionate, and it does make a difference even if you're
and say something. If you see it,
something.
There was a man who walked down the street where I live now who was a dog trainer, and he was horrible to the dogs that he was walking. And I ran out every time I saw him, and I said, stop. Much to my husband's fear that he would, you know, because obviously they knew where we lived.
Right.
But I was like, no. And I, you know, I didn't swear at him or anything, but I tried to stop him. And then fast forward years later, he doesn't do it anymore.
Good.
It took a while, you know, but
you shoved that seed down in the
that's
dirt.
the thing is don't get discouraged.
Yeah.
Say something every time. Figure out what the way in with someone is. Because if someone's like angry, there's a way in. My husband's very quiet. He's a very shy person. And so when he sees someone doing something bad, he tries to go in like sneaky.
Yeah.
Like he'll be like, oh, I used to do that with my dog. And I learned this way, you know, where I'm like, what? You know, so I always know when we're coming up on something.
You're like, it's your turn.
Yeah.
To tag your
Tag team, yep.
We come up on something that I know is questionable, and he'll like either hurry or fall back.
Yeah.
She's about to lose it on this person. So, but
it's a skill, but it's a really good skill. I try to manage that too, because sometimes I could be very raw, and then other times I'm like, oh, this person's not receiving this. I'm going to relate and be vulnerable and say, I was right there, or my mother or my cousin. Yeah.
There's always something you can say, and if it doesn't change in the moment, don't get discouraged, because I always go away and think.
You just slap them in the head after that. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's not working.
They're always going to think about what you said, and I do think as people that care and being kind, it is so important to speak up even when you're uncomfortable, even when your voice shakes, and it's not easy, but it's not as hard as what the animal might be going through.
Exactly.
Because they have voices, but their voices often are in another language that people don't understand, and they're ignored.
I understand it.
You understand the language because you speak to them. But this has been such an informative and incredible episode. Even just prepping for this, like, my mind has changed a lot on this, and the misconceptions that I had about open admission versus no kill, like what is a kill shelter. It's been a lot more clear to me, and I think that hopefully the audience feels the same way.
Yeah, if we could change, so can you. I was very much on one side. I didn't really want to hear it, but it is case by case. And at the end of the day, we are the problem, and we need to all take accountability and really, really fight those friends and family members that are treating animals like they're disposable and not forever family members. Yeah. Don't buy and adopt. that didn't go as smooth.
I thought you were going to say don't buy and breed.
Adopt,
but adopt
for needs. Yeah, adopt and shop.
And only adopt when you're really ready to take on the responsibility.
When you're really ready. People just don't understand that. Even they do that with children. I'm like,
they do that with children.
You selfishly had a child.
Exactly. Where can people find you?
Through PETA.
Okay, so everybody, guys, go check out PETA.org if you want more information on this. Follow at PETA on all social handles. I'm at It's Jamie's Corner.
I'm at Justina.
And we so appreciate you coming on,
too. Thank you.
being here in person, and thank you guys for watching. Yes. You know the drill. We'll be back.